I'm just going to recap a little bit of this morning, just from my own point of view. I was just listening to everyone, I was really interested in Paul's point about TV being dead, but also pop music being dead, but not knowing it yet. And that's kind of really resonated with me because that's how it feels. And I went to a thing at the BBC and they said, what kind of TV do you watch and how do you like it and what should we change? And I said, I don't have a TV. And they almost threw me out. I said, I watch iPlayer. And they went, what do you mean you watch iPlayer? I said, well, you invented it. And they still kind of went, well, just leave. So, parts of them don't really get it yet. Other parts do. Obviously, the people who invented iPlayer get it, but the people who are asking about TV don't. So there's all sorts of disconnects. And so that really was kind of a big point for me. And then with Simon, there was a huge wave kind of went through his talk about, basically about this inarticulate moment where everyone's recycling and cycling, and it's like an engine idling and going round and round because no one knows how to go forward anymore, no one knows where to go next. And that seems very resonant point just for the present in what's happening at the moment. There really is a lack of articulation and a lack of kind of knowledge of where you could go next or why or what a future could be. But I think there's also something in that which brings up a different question when I was talking to Steve about this conference, about geography, that maybe we're trapped in a certain geography, and in that geography we're looking to pop music and we're looking to culture and we're looking to TV to present some kind of a future. And I think, well, they're all dead. Also, there's a whole other world out there that isn't looking in that way and doesn't have that history. It's a UK and American history that from the Vietnam War and from protest and civil rights and US, that all of these things will do something, will bring some kind of a change, and that again in the 90s and 93 rave will do the same and internet will do the same. Yet there's a whole other world out there that hasn't had that history and doesn't look to any of those things for change or the future and don't really give a damn. So at the moment, as we're talking about all of this today, there are 2 million people on the streets of Brazil, and I think they definitely want a future. They're out there. There's definitely a future happening there. They're really on the road and sort of thinking we need a future. The same in Turkey. They're not sort of thinking, they're not debating OTEC. They have moved on and they're sort of going, we need a future. But at the same time, and it's that whole Occupy movement question, at the same time, they're deeply inarticulate as well. When they all actually stop protesting and start talking to each other, they find that there's probably as many different viewpoints as there are people in the park because they haven't actually articulated anything. Nobody knows what kind of future they want. There is no shared vision for a future. There's all sorts of different futures, but everybody knows they want something. And so there's this pressing demand in sort of mass movements at the moment for a different kind of future and a kind of mass inarticulation across the entire globe about what kind of future and what could that be, which I think is kind of still very promising because I think it just means anything that we have now, they don't want. We don't want. It's all dead. So there has to be something new, and that inarticulation is an expression of the fact that nothing that already exists is enough or works anymore. All the political systems are dead. All the politicians are no longer trusted. The cultural sort of tools are also dead. In a sense, there's a whole moment waiting for a new kind of future and a new kind of articulation. But I don't think we can look to culture for it because I think culture is way behind and does not know how to express that, whether it's art or whether it's music or whether it's TV or film. They just have nothing very much to offer us at the moment. I should possibly resign very, very quickly. But it just feels that, there's something out there that's ahead of culture, by a mile. So everything needs to catch up, everything needs to rethink, and everything needs to sort of pull itself down to zero and start again. So I think that's happening at the same time as these other points. So there's a very wide context for all of this. And I think it was lovely hearing in the panel discussion about almost the social studies movement where everyone's now, the triumph of social studies, we can analyse everything and every detail, and we're all analysing either Lady Gaga or some other moment in David Bowie and sort of everything. We're all kind of experts at that kind of interpretation. And that, when you're saying we just talk and talk and talk, is kind of like, it's killing us. So there's that moment we just have to stop talking and go out and do something we don't know what the hell we're doing and just get on with it. And it's probably not going to be a sort of generation of older men that have stood up so far, but somebody else, and just to hell with us, and they go out and do it. But that has to happen pretty soon, I think. It will without us. And I think also there's a geographical question attached to that we're stuck in one notion of the future and one notion of the present. If you go to China and they're building a city a week, they've got another whole future happening there. If you go to India, it's another one. If you go to Brazil, whatever. They're all completely different speeds of future at the moment, and totally different kinds of articulation in different places. And you can fly to one place to the next, and they're all completely different. So there is no unified notion. And I think we still have this vision from the 70s and from the 90s that there's a global vision, which really was just US and UK vision of the future, which would be, space, and it would be rave, and it would be certain psychedelic drugs. But there's a whole other set of notions out there that are different again, in different geographies, working at different speeds, and there's no guarantee. Maybe all we're doing is archiving everything before we pack up. Maybe everybody else is heading into the future. But we can't assume that our future is the future or the accepted future. There's no consensus on that. It's just another version of the future. So I think that was kind of what I was getting from this morning, and maybe leads into this afternoon, because I think there's a broadening now of this into the notion of technology and internet in this afternoon's speakers. And the first one's Olia Lialina, and always been one of my great heroes. Her early works in the 90s, My Boyfriend Came Back from the War, Agatha Peers, were just the first works you saw on kind of internet as, new media art, internet art. Incredible works, and sort of remixed by lots of people, really vital and still vital works. And I think she's now looking at the way the internet is not archiving itself. So everything in the internet is sort of disappearing and is not being archived in a strange way. So we're actually losing, and she points to GeoCities, which is one of the vastest and most horrible, you don't mind me saying that, vulgar looking kind of communes of people making web pages. And then it was wiped out by Yahoo. And then it was saved again by people called the archive team, who I have a little thing from the archive team, which says, "History is our future. We're going to save your shit." And they saved about a terabyte of GeoCities, and she's going to be talking about a project she's been doing in the Photographers Gallery recently, looking at that saved terabyte and looking at the wider context of almost the archaeology of the internet. And after that, I've lost everything now. We have someone else, James Bridle, and James is going to be talking about new aesthetics, which in some ways, some places it says he invented, but actually trying to find a really fast description of that. The nicest description I found this morning was about the digital erupting into the physical world, and that interaction and interpenetration of the digital world and the physical world today. And one of the projects he's been doing recently is making the shadow of a drone on the road, both in Brighton and in Washington, and some beautiful videos of that online as well. But actually looking at digital entities and digital objects and how they're now beginning to manifest themselves within the real world and the material world, and how that interaction is happening constantly and changing the way we live. So I think that is going to be fascinating to talk to here. Just both of them, I think, are really talking about who we are, where we are, how we survive in this new world with the interpenetration of technology and the material world. After that, as Remco said, we have a fast break. Then we have Sarah Lowndes, who's coming back to really sum up and present about the day in general, but also she's got a talk which is kind of fascinates me, and I don't know what it's about, called On Time, Concentration and Supermarkets. So you have to come back for that. So I'm kind of really looking forward to that. And then after that, the panel discussion, in which you actually get to say something, and you take the discussion forward, because I think that was getting really interesting. There are so many questions coming up just before lunch. So I think if you can stick it out for the day, I think you'll really enjoy it. So I'll stop there. Thank you.